Hey everybody, today is May 12th, Christos Anesti, Christ is risen. The message today is that no one is unworthy of Christ. So let's look at our reading from the book of Acts. This reading from Acts 10:21 to 33 immediately follows the revelation of an angel to both Cornelius and to St. Peter. So what happened in the reading immediately before today? We have St. Peter on his roof praying, and he has this revelation of this sheet coming down and all these unworthy animals that the Jews aren't allowed to eat coming down on the sheet, and God saying, take, kill, and eat. And at the same time, or just right before, Cornelius, who Scripture calls a God-fearing man and a devout man, has a similar sort of revelation of an angel, but it says instead to go to Joppa and to there to find Peter and to bring him to him, so hear whatever he has to say. So Cornelius, we should start by saying that Cornelius wasn't Jewish. Cornelius was a Gentile, a non-Jew who was following aspects of Judaism, who recognized the holiness within Judaism, but knew at the same time that he had a place and that it wasn't part of that community. So he still practiced Judaism. He prayed at certain times. Today it says that he was praying at an appointed time in Judaism to pray. And despite his not being Jewish, he followed the revelation that was given to him, that he had something that he needed to hear, and Peter was the one to tell him this special message. So then it comes to today's reading, where it says that Cornelius had called together all of his family and his close friends to hear whatever it was that Peter was going to be telling him. And as soon as Peter arrives to Caesarea in Palestine and the north of Israel, it says that as soon as Peter got there, Cornelius fell to Peter's feet and he worshipped him. But Peter didn't just say, oh, thanks. No, he said, stop, what are you doing? I'm just a man. I'm not Christ, is what he was saying. And as soon as he did that, he says that Cornelius says that God has shown me, or rather, Peter says, God has shown me that I should show no one as common or unclean. Because St. Peter wasn't even meant to be with these people. This whole room full of non-Jews, at a time where the law told him that he wasn't allowed to be with them because it would make him ritually unclean. He wouldn't be able to properly worship God by being with these people. This is something that feels completely foreign to us today. It's a concept that doesn't really make any sense. But what we do have a sense of is that sometimes we set people apart from ourselves, don't we? We might not think of them as unclean or as people that I'm not allowed to go to church if I'm around them, but we do have a sense that there are some people who maybe aren't good enough, or maybe sometimes we think we're not good enough if we're like them, or if we don't pray the right way, or if we don't go to church enough, or if we've fallen into certain aspects of sin in our lives, we feel that we're not worthy of Christ. And today's reading has several different points that I'd like us to take, and it's going to be kind of short. The first is that there's a lot of people who are waiting for the gospel, just like Cornelius was. Cornelius had been worshiping, had been following Judaism to the best of his ability, but he needed someone to come explain that to him. In the same way that the eunuch, the Ethiopian eunuch, needed someone to come explain the gospel to him, we see in the book of Acts as well. And today there's a lot of people who maybe they've heard aspects of the gospel, just like Cornelius had. He had heard aspects of Judaism, but he needed it explained to him. There's a lot of people who have heard about Christ, who maybe have gone to church, but something about the gospel has never taken root in their life because they've never had someone really live it out, and someone that's been able to explain it in a way that makes sense, not just head sense, but heart sense to them. They've never seen worship in a way that makes sense to them. So there's a lot of people that are waiting. The second point, no one is unworthy of Christ. Our sin doesn't make us unworthy. It does separate us from God. In a lot of ways, it separates ourselves from God. It doesn't make God separate himself from us. And that's what the revelation that Peter had really means. It says, yes, there were all of these things that were unclean for the Jews before. But God did not make those things unclean. God previously had separated his people from those types of foods and things. But now God is saying nothing is unclean in that regard. And it's the same thing what Christ said. It's not what you put in you that makes you unclean. It's what comes out of you that makes you unclean. It's what you do with yourself. It's not what you eat or who you are around that makes you unclean. So no one is unworthy of Christ. Second point. The third thing is that we are called to share this great news, this awesome news that no one is unworthy of Christ. We're meant to be sharing that with people. It's not something that we're supposed to hold on to for ourselves and guard, keep it away from everyone else. We're called to do what Cornelius did. Cornelius went and he said, I'm going to follow and I'm going to send for this guy that I've never heard of, I've never met. He's in a city completely far away. I need to hear what he has to say, and I'm then going to gather all my friends and my family to hear what he has to say because it's really important and this matters. So in the same way, does your faith matter to you enough to share it with other people? Do you have a faith that matters enough to you to share it to your family and to your friends? If not, maybe you don't value the gospel and this great news that's been given to you. So how can you cultivate that value and that joy that Cornelius had for this faith that he didn't completely understand, but that he wanted to know better? So for us today, we are called to remember that there are a lot of people who are waiting to hear the gospel, that want to know this great news, and to discover that no one is unworthy of Christ, and that we're called to be sharing this message with our family and our friends. So I hope that this is a joyful message for you, that no one is unworthy, that you may feel unworthy today, but you're not. Today, Christ is calling you, and he wants this deep and abiding relationship with you today. So may Christ strengthen you in everything, and we hope to see you again tomorrow at noon with Father John's next message, and to see you again on Thursday at noon. Until then, amen.